So in A-level biology, we step the nitrogen cycle up a little bit compared to what we did in GCSE. And if you want to remind yourself what you learned in GCSE, I've added the video clip for you. Nitrogen is a diatomic molecule, and I'm sure you remember that it makes up 78% of our atmosphere. And bizarrely, it's unable to get trapped into plants and animals naturally. So we need something else in the equation to allow that to happen. And the answer to this problem is bacteria. And this is why we are so dependent on bacteria. So we know that nitrogen in the air is able to be trapped or fixed by a group of bacteria, such as rhizobiums, which are found in the root nodules of leguminous plants. Now, leguminous plants are any plants that form a pod. So your beans, your peas, your clover, and actually a huge number of plants for those of you who go on to study botany. And these bacteria are able to convert nitrogen from the air into nitrates in the soil. They could also turn the nitrogen into ammonia, but more about that later. So we know nitrates are so important for plants to be able to form molecules such as proteins, and we know from GCSE biology that proteins are for growth and repair. So they are an integral part of a plant. This first process, by the way, is known as nitrogen fixation. And remember, the bacteria is rhizobium. Now, these nitrates get absorbed by plants for growth and repair, and they then land up in the food chain, continue up in the food chain as animals ingest them. So these are, of course, your herbivores. They eat them, or the correct term is ingest them. And these proteins are broken down into amino acids, which our body uses for growth and repair and around the body. But amino acids can also be broken down by our liver, and that then causes nitrogen compounds in our urine, like urea. We also know that animals can also get rid of some of their nitrogen compounds as they ingest their food. So yes, in feces or poo. Now, the poo, the urine, the animals, or even the plants at some point are all going to be decomposed by bacteria and fungi. And that all then breaks down into ammonia, NH3. The ammonia can be converted into ammonium compounds too. So we're going from NH3 to NH4. Ammonia, NH3 to ammonium, NH4. Now, there's other bacteria in the soil known as nitrifying bacteria. And what they do is they convert the ammonia and the ammonium into nitrites, which is NO2 minus ions, and then back to nitrates. And this is known as nitrifixation. Nitrification. It should be a C rather than an X. Nitrification. So we've come across nitrogen fixation and nitrification. Okay. Now, let's take this even further. Some of the nitrogen in the air can, in the event of lightning, and also what happens in a car. So we also know that when internal combustion engines do what they do, some of the nitrogen from the air at that very high temperature can react with oxygen to form nitrogen oxides. And these all react with react with rain to form acid rain in the form of nitric acid. And this too can turn the nitrogen back into nitrates in the soil. Now, in our next step, we also know, thanks to Fritz Haber, those of you that do chemistry, that the nitrogen in the air can be reacted with hydrogen to form ammonia, some more ammonia. And he converted that ammonia by adding nitric acid to it to form ammonium nitrates. And this awarded him a Nobel Prize because these ammonium nitrates became fertilizers for plants and helped crops around the world grow to feed our human population. So the fertilizers bring nitrates back into the soil to promote that plant growth. But we also know that sometimes if we put too much fertilizers out there or there's too much rain, the fertilizers can leach or wash out of the soil by the rainwater. And then we get that process called eutrophication, where the algae blooms and they have a ball because there's all these wonderful minerals in the water. But eventually the algae dies, and then the bacteria have a feast as they break down all the algae. And through respiration by the bacteria, the oxygen is taken out of the water, all that dissolved oxygen. So that leaves very little dissolved oxygen for the fish and the invertebrates, which can lead to their death. Now, there's one final thing that a little bit undoes this whole process in the nitrogen cycle. There's some bacteria, these are the bad guys, known as denitrifying bacteria, and they live in water-logged soil. And they're able to convert the nitrates in the soil back into nitrogen in the air. And because they're undoing this, we call this denitrification. Now, you could be asked to explain this whole cycle, or you could be asked to explain the role of bacteria in the cycle. But it'd be a really good idea for you to be able to draw this out without looking at your notes. And you know what happens? The more you practice, the better you get. Good luck.